guys, Mr.NET here. Today I'm gonna explain you the .NET documentation with C#. I hope you enjoy it. So with my documentation class 1 and with the framework docxif, I'm going to show you how we can use the documentation in .NET. I have 4 methods and we have also 4 ways to document our source code. The first way is to use single line comments. This comment has only one line, and if you want to comment just a part of your code with one word or with a short message, you can use this. If you have more text, you can use the multi-line comments. Now you see you can use more lines. And the third method are the XML documentation. This documentation starts with 3 slashes, and we have to use the XML tags. I explain the XML tags later in the videos, which XML tags we can use. But for now, this is method 3. I explain it with this method, and we can also use the XML documentation with multi-line comments. We can use slash and 2 stars and the XML tags to use multi-line comments for XML documentation. Now if I build this and I show you in the browser how the documentation works, now you see no documentation are available. If I do the build and I actualize the browser, you can see the method 1 which has the single line comments hasn't a comment, and the method 2, the multi-line comments, are also ignored. This is because these 2 comments are ignored by the compiler. So if you want XML documentation, you have to use 3 slashes or the multi-line XML documentation. You see the method 3, this is method 3, use XML documentation, and the method 4 also use XML documentation. I show the documentation, the XML documentation, in a other class called the documentation class 2. We see that the browser hasn't any documentation about this class, so I can insert a documentation with Visual Studio. It automatically inserted the summary tag, so I can write here, this is the summary of class. And I can use also another tag, the remarks tag. That's a remark. Whoops, that's a remark. The difference between these two tags is that this tag here, the summary tag, also used in the source code documentation. The remark tag are only used in other documentations. So if I look into the browser, I see that the remarks are also used here, and here is the summary tag. So keep in mind, not every tag is shown in the source code. The next tag what I want to show is the tag for members or fields in a class, public static int. I create an integer called number with the value 1, 2, 3, 4. I can also here add a snippet. That's the number, and I can describe this number with the tag value. That's the description of the number. So the methods, public void method1. Many methods can have parameters, and there are also tags to describe parameters. Method 1, you see IntelliSense inserted automatically the tag, the XML tag param with the attribute name, that's the parameter name, and I can here add a description of the parameter. I can here add the description of the parameter. So you can use it also in the source code documentation and in the browser. I show you this later. Also, some methods can have return values. Return empty string. For that we have also a separate tag, the return tag. Description of the return value. So now after the build I can show you this in the browser. Yes, we have the fields called number. We have the summary, that's a number, and the description, that's inside of the value tag. That's the description of the number, and you can see that's the description of the number. We have our method 1 with a parameter string. We have here the description of the string, it's a type, the parameter name, and the description of the parameter. We have the second method with the return value. We have a type and the description of the return value. We can use to style our summary. We can use some other tags. I create for this a new method and insert a XML documentation. Method 3. So if I add here a text, next text, we see that the text is shown here in the same line. To add here a line break after the number 3, I can use a HTML tag for a line break. We see, okay, we have here a line break. We can also use the tag para for paragraph to add some paragraphs. Para 1, para 2. Now you see we have here 2 paragraphs. We can also describe the exceptions, what are possible can be thrown in a method. So I add here also an XML documentation. That's 4. And the exception tag is a own tag what we can use, and in this C reference we have to write the type of the exceptions that can be thrown. It's a system exception for example, and here I can write the condition from when dot dot dot. In the documentation we will see the condition and the exception type of the method 4. You see also in the source code the exceptions, system exception. So I can see that the method 4 can throw the exception, system exception. In the browser we can see method 4, the type of the exception and the condition. Okay, I wrote this wrong, but you understand, hopefully. If we want to document a method, like public void method 5 with an example, we can use it in two ways. We can add to the summary tag a C tag and add here a method description, or we can use an example tag and add inside the example tag a text like description, and we can here use also a code tag and add code snippets into this tag. So if I build this project, we see in the documentation after the build is finished, you see the method 5 in another color because I use the C tag in the summary tag, and here the examples with the description, that's my text, description, and we see also the example code. So with this can you show some examples for your methods? The next XML tags are tags for references. I create a method. This method takes a generic parameter, and now I can use with the XML tag type reference, I can refer to this type and give this type information about type T. The param tag, we know it, information about the parameter, and I can refer to the parameter and to the types also in the summary text. Info about, and I can use the type param reference to refer this type, info about the type T, and type reference to the parameter. So we see info about the type T and the parameter. And now we can see in the documentation after the build, just 2 seconds, hopefully, yes. We see info about the type T and the parameter, and also tables for parameters and type parameters. I can also refer to other methods using the tags C. I can refer to method 5, for example. I can use this class, but I'm in the same namespace, that's not a problem, but it's better for me. So I can inside refer in the source code to other methods, and I can use the C also tag to refer to create a reference in the documentation. After the build I can show you this. Yes, build started, build succeed. Yes, you see also method 5, and I can jump to this method. The next XML tags are the list XML tag. You can use it to generate a list in the summary tag. In the summary tag we can use list with 3 different types: bullet, number and table. In the list you can use items with maybe terms, term 1, and description tags. Description 1. So I copy this and paste this here. So now I show you this in the documentation. After the build, yes, you see the method 7 with a list in the summary. The next possibility is to inherit a documentation from a base class. For this I inherit from another class, my main class, and the main class has an abstract method called method base class with the summary information here. And I have 2 choices. I can now insert a comment and write the new documentation inside the summary tag, or I can use the inherit tag, inherit documentation, to inherit from the base class some information about the abstract method. Yes. And the last possibility is to use an external XML file for our documentation. Method 8. I can take the list with the summary and insert it into a XML file. But moment, I have to use it without this slashes. Yes. The tag what I can use for this is the include tag. Include. It needs a file, and the file is the doc.xml. I'm in the same namespace with my class like the doc.xml, so I can use only the file name with the extension. Now we need a path to our summary tag in the XML, and the path is source code doc slash, and now you see we need an attribute, but I hasn't here an attribute, so I create an attribute, an element with an attribute member with the name. That's the attribute name, and my documentation is inside this member. Yes. Next path is member with the name from the attribute name is here, And now we also need a name for our summary. Method 8. Oh, that's wrong. I'm inside here. Member. What's wrong? Method 8. Member. Ah. Yes. We take the method 8 and all what is inside this method. Now I have to save all, and hopefully everything goes fine after the build. But this tag isn't supported by the framework docfx, so I can show you this only in the source code. But it doesn't work. Source code documentation, member, attribute name, method 8. Build succeeded, hopefully. Method 8, member name, attribute name, source documentation. That's a little bit tricky. Yes, you see term 1, description 1, term 1, description 1. That's the list what I have inside my documentation. In the browser you didn't see it. You see the method 8 without the list, and the method base class, the abstract method with the inherit documentation. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed it. Hopefully you give me a feedback, and if you liked it, subscribe it or subscribe my channel, and see you next time. Thank you. Bye.